It's Monday, people. Fresh off your weekend, getting your work week started on what is the hottest show on the streets, the #1 forum for Crimson Tide football. News, notes, information, and content. That being in my own words, with yours truly, Stephen Smith of Touchdown Alabama Magazine. Excited to have each and every last one of you tuning in on the network on today. Got a lot to talk about, a blockbuster, jam-packed show for you guys, breaking down the Crimson Tide as we do this all the time from Tuscaloosa, streaming this via YouTube. And speaking of YouTube, go ahead right now, drop a thumbs up, give a like on the show, hit that subscribe button, and turn all of those notifications on so that way you can have the best in news, notes, alerts on your Crimson Tide. We're also streaming this through Facebook as well, so shouts out to all my Facebook people out there. We are coming to you also. And speaking of Touchdown Alabama Magazine, you can purchase individual copies of the magazine, have those sent to your door. Link will be found in the description. But we start Monday off by speaking with the better half of the room. The show does not go without this brother right here in the production studio, John Ivory. Man, it's Monday. We're back again, baby.
What's going on, Steven, and what's going on with the chat? Make sure you guys share the show. Facebook, YouTube. Hey, we got a great show. I'm excited. I'm glad football is here. So let's get the show started.
We're going to get the show rocking and rolling, and we want you to be a part of the conversation. You can do this by calling 205-448-1358, the number to call in to let your voice be heard on the show. That's 205-448-1358. And one more time, 205-448-1358. Want to hear from you today. What are you thinking? Your thoughts, your ideas, your concerns when you look at the Alabama Crimson Tide football program. But we start things off going to the first topic here of conversation. And, much like last week, we ended Friday of last week's show and talking about some players who are emerging, stepping up, rising in the preseason practice program for the Crimson Tide. And while it's great to recognize or take notice of the likes of Ben Davis and Christopher Allen, the two veterans in the room at outside linebacker. It's great seeing both of those guys step up. It's great seeing both of those guys really emerge and help out the younger players on the team and have the opportunity to start in the upcoming season. But just adding on to that, I was able to get information over the weekend about how there are two freshman outside linebackers really pushing, really emerging, really rising, and impressing teammates and coaches. And those two guys are none other than William Anderson and Drew Sanders. Both guys are exploding in the preseason practice program at the outside linebacker position. And one of the things I was told over the weekend was, Stephen, the competition is back in Alabama. Real, true competition is back within the program. If you go back to the 2018 and 2019 campaigns, not much competition, if any at all, took place. And when you don't have young guys, nipping on the heels of the veterans, really pushing the veterans and forcing those guys to be better, when you don't have competition at certain spots, then the starter at that position feels like no one's checking me, no one's making me work harder, nobody's pushing me. And especially when you don't have that self-motivation, at times you get complacent, you slack off, you take a step back. And that was a problem the last two seasons with no real competition in place. Now that competition's back, you're seeing the younger guys push the older guys. You're seeing the veteran players step up and be leaders to these young guys. And wow, it's awesome seeing, Ben Davis and Christopher Allen both lock in, because they both know it's either now or never. Either we lock in or one of these young bucks is going to take our spot on the field, and we're not going to get a chance to ever be starters for the University of Alabama. So as great as it is to see, the young bucks pushing the older guys, it's even better when you look at just the likes of Will Anderson and Drew Sanders pushing, clawing, fighting for an opportunity to get on this field and have an impact, because Coach Saban looks back at the 2015, 2016, and 2017 defenses that he had, and he thinks about, how can I recreate that essence? How can I recreate that culture? How can I recreate that environment where I'm bringing pressure, confusion, chaos, concern, havoc, distress, helplessness, and hopelessness to opposing offenses from every single angle? How can I create that pressure, from every single angle? And just going back to those defenses, 2015, 2016, 2017, I distinctly remember the 2015 college football playoff semifinal matchup, the Goodyear Cotton Bowl against Michigan State, and the pressure came from everywhere. Like, you thought, Michigan State thought it was coming from the left side, it came from the right side. Spartans thought it would come from the right side, it came from the left side. Spartans thought it would come from either side, it came straight up the middle. Or there was a blitz coming off the corner or the safety. The offensive line was helpless. The running backs in that game were helpless. Michigan's offensive coordinator helpless and hopeless. And Connor Cook, I felt so bad for him at quarterback because he was running for his life. There was a moment in that game, he literally comes to the sideline, cussing everybody out, and he looks at the head coach, Mark D'Antonio, and goes, Coach, what are we going to do? The creatures, they're coming from everywhere. We can't stop them. We can't block them. You thought it would be, Jonathan Allen from one end, then boom, here comes Tim Williams, boom, here comes Ryan Anderson, boom, here comes all of these guys. And Michigan State could not block those guys, and it was terror coming from every single side, every single angle, and that's what Coach Saban is trying to recreate. What way can we get back to, having that pressure, having that rush, having that chaos, having that concern from opposing, having that concern to opposing offenses where we're getting to them or we're getting at them from every single possible angle. And for a lot of people, you look at this for a second here, just going back to that 2015 through 2017 units, people look at, Tim Williams and Ryan Anderson here, for just a minute. Both of those guys were not just day one starters, right? They came off the bench in third and long situations, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, and when the starters would come off the field, Coach Saban would put those guys, Ryan Anderson, Tim Williams, Rashaan Evans, Deshaun Hand, he would put those guys on the field in the Dime Rabbits package and tell them, you know what your job is, you know what your role is, go out there and do it. Go make the quarterback's life a living nightmare and go hunt the football. And that's exactly what they did. 2015, Tim Williams, 12.5 tackles for loss, 10.5 sacks that year, 4 quarterback hurries. Of course, Ryan Anderson, for him, we're looking at 11.5 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, and 10, quarterback hurries, getting after the passing game. And we look at the best help you can give a secondary. The reason why those secondaries 2015, 2016, and 2017 were so good was because of the pass rush. The best friend to a secondary is having a tenacious, consistent, effective pass rush. 2015, Alabama had 52 sacks. Because of those 52 sacks, it had 19 interceptions, including 4 for touchdowns. 2016, it had 54 sacks. And because of those 54 sacks, 16 interceptions, including 6 return for scores. And then 2017, we're looking at 40 sacks, and because of those, 19 interceptions, including 2 return for scores. So you see the pattern here. When you've got that consistent, that tenacious, that fierce pass rush coming from every single possible angle, but Alabama's secondary is able to step up, break on the football, create interceptions, create pass breakups, create turnovers to put Alabama in short fields where the offense is concerned. So, when you look at just Will Anderson and Drew Sanders here, they have the opportunity to be what Ryan Anderson and Tim Williams were, back in 2015, coming off the bench, getting after the quarterback, getting after the football, coming after the passing game. And it's crazy how you look at the Crimson Tide. It's got Christian Barmore on the defensive line, Brian Ray on the defensive line, DJ Dale on the front, Fidarian Mathis on the front, Justin Aboigbe, Byron Young. You have all these guys on the front line, right? Then at linebacker, you've got Dylan Moses, you got Christian Harris, you got Joshua McMillan, you got Ale Cajo, and then you've got, of course, Anderson and Drew Sanders. But just taking this from the nickel defensive perspective, if we're doing this from the nickel defensive perspective, or better than that, if we're doing this from the Dime Rabbits perspective, we're doing this from Dime Rabbits here. Alabama kind of a situation in Dime Rabbits where you've got Barmore on the line, Brian Ray on the line, DJ Dale on the line. You could have maybe a Drew Sanders or a Will Anderson, walk down as that fourth, rush defensive lineman. Who are you going to block on the play? At any given play, at any given time, your quarterback's going to be hitting the ground because who do you assign to double team? You can't afford a double team Barmore. You can't afford a double team Brian Ray. You can't afford a double team Byron Young or Justin Boyd, but you can't afford to double team anybody because whomever you leave single, they're coming after the quarterback. And it goes back to what I mentioned last week. The depth is strong here, on this defensive front rotation. It's gotten back to what Alabama was used to in 2015 and in 2016, where you're 2 and 3 deep here across the board. So while it's really exciting to see the likes of Ben Davis step up, and that's awesome. And I'm looking forward to seeing, Davis start this year. It's been 5 years. It's been a long time, but he's finally locked in and ready to wreak havoc. And, seeing Christopher Allen step up, and, I want to see him, the former 4-star in the 2017 class out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, at 6'4", 250 pounds, really step up and do his thing. But just hearing the work that William Anderson and Drew Sanders have been doing, this is key. Because that competition that, I'm pushing the older guys. I'm making them work. I'm making them be better. I'm making them be great. These older guys helping out the freshmen, but also keep it in the back of their minds, if I slip, if I don't play my best ball, if I don't have my best practice, if I don't have my best A game, if I'm not doing what I need to do as a junior, senior, graduate student, if I'm not doing what I need to do as someone that's a veteran, as an experienced player within the system, I run the risk of having one of these younger guys come in here fresh and take my spot. So it's just great to see the competition back. It's great to see the fire back. It's great to see the energy back. It's great to see, everybody going after that one common goal, which is get Alabama back to the SEC championship and win it, get Alabama back to the college football playoff and compete for a national championship. Most importantly, Alabama getting back to having the best guys on the field and having the best guys fight, for those starting positions. And Will Anderson and Drew Sanders, this is the future pass rush duo. This is Tim Williams, Ryan Anderson Part 2. This is exactly what this is. And just seeing how, Coach Saban started Anderson and Williams and, Rashawn Evans and Deshaun Hand, back in 2015, those guys started off as rotationary guys. They came off the bench, 3rd and long, your job, I'm going to turn you loose. You go attack, harass, kill, destroy, just utterly eradicate that quarterback and make them feel like, why in the world did we have to play the Alabama Crimson Tide, this week on the schedule? And they were able to take that role, take pride in that role, take joy in that role, take excitement in that role, and it went on to them being, starters and great players at Alabama. So Will Anderson and Drew Sanders in that same situation right now as they're pushing in the preseason practice program. But we take our first break here on the show. Don't touch that dial. Just getting you started here on a Monday. Upon our return, we get to your phone calls, your thoughts, your questions, your chats, your concerns. Bring them on in here right after this.
Every sports fan deserves the proper representation. Whitwell Sports introduces to you the Title Towel. Wave that Title Towel in the air like you just don't care. In support of Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide. Only $9.99 and it lasts a lifetime. Head on over to whitwellsports.com and get your Title Towel today.
Remember the taste of Grandma's delicious sweets? Emily's Heirloom Pound Cakes brings back those precious memories with just one bite. Each cake made from scratch. They make the perfect dessert to share with family and friends for any occasion, and ordering is easy. Visit Emily'sHeirloomPoundCakes.com. Click the online store and shop. Then pick up your fresh cake at the kitchen in downtown Homewood. Order yours online at Emily'sHeirloomPoundCakes.com. Emily's Heirloom Pound Cakes, making memories from scratch.
We're back to the action, folks, starting your work week on a Monday. Hottest show on the streets here in my own words with yours truly, Stephen Smith of Touchdown Alabama Magazine. Appreciating every last one of you tuning in on today. And as always, be sure to give a thumbs up, give a like on the show, hit that subscribe button, and turn all of those notifications on so that way you can have all the news, notes, updates, and analysis on your Crimson Tide. But it's your time. Bama Nation, 205-448-1358, the number to call in to let your voice be heard on the show, 205-448-1358. Now when we start things off with Waylon, it's Monday, man. How you feeling, Waylon?
Hey, it's TDA. Y'all get ready now, 45, wide ride on 2. Hut, what's going on, Steven?
Doing good, man. I'm excited for football myself, man. Excited for football myself. Happy that the SEC was able to get the thing hammered down with the 10, conference-only matchups. Now, of course, Alabama has not, put its schedule, its individual schedule out yet on rolltide.com, but that should be coming sooner rather than later. So once we get that, we'll have a chance to dissect it and dive into it. But right now, we will have football. And that's what the people want.
Exactly. They want the football. So I hope everything works out well and everybody stays healthy and safe. And we need to remember Bill Battle in our prayers. He's in the hospital over at UAB. Yeah, Coach Battle played with Coach Bryant from 60 to 62 and then was athletic director when Coach Moore passed away. So Bill Battle is a real key player in the Alabama program for years and years, Steven.
Absolutely. Our thoughts and prayers definitely with Battle and his family. I mean, as you mentioned there, Waylon was a huge, strong, great athletic director for the Crimson Tide, a great family. I heard the story as well as he's been battling with the coronavirus. He is actually also a cancer survivor. So definitely our thoughts and prayers of strength and strong faith out there to, Battle and his family because, he meant a lot, for the program.
Oh, yeah, he goes way back. Old timer. A lot of these people are going away. One of these days they're not going to be here, so we need to respect them while they're here and remember them while they're here. Not just when they're gone, but we're going to do a quickie tonight. We had to pull this night there. All right, everybody, hello on the chat. All the love, I appreciate it. Be safe on Tuesday. And I guess we're going in like this. It's Stephen on the mic, JP behind the scenes, Justin knows recruiting, if you know what I mean. Always remember the super chat. Don't forget to put the money in the hat. If you don't, I hit you over the head with a baseball bat. I'll see y'all Wednesday. Bye-bye, Stephen.
Appreciate that, Waylon. Please do not get hit over the head with Waylon's baseball bat. So if you heard him, put the money in the super chat there. But we continue with the Caller Zero on Monday. You're live on In My Own Words. What's going on?
What's up, Stephen? It's Sean calling from Huntsville.
What's going on, Sean?
What's going on, bro? I just wanted to talk real quick about the secondary, man. Being a coach myself, I just wanted to run through a few things that I possibly saw, give you my humble opinion, man, and see what you thought about it.
Go ahead.
with Pat, man, I keep hearing they're going to move him to the star, and for me, man, that can mean one or two things. I don't really know yet which it means because I hadn't seen a lot of those guys. I've seen Josh Jobe several times, but hadn't seen Jalen Armour-Davis since high school. But with them moving Pat to the star, supposedly, I'm hoping that end up well for us. Because one thing I know is about Saban, Coach Saban will put his most physical corner on the boundary. He'll almost give up pass coverage skills for a physical corner. And I saw it over the years, man, with Dre Kirkpatrick, with Trayvon Diggs. People don't understand, but Trayvon Diggs, honestly, in coverage, may not have been as talented as Josh Jobe. But Trayvon is very, very physical coming off the line of scrimmage, man. If you get a receiver who's extremely fast and can catch and get off press, they'll give him some problems, a la the LSU game. He can't really find the ball. He has problems finding the ball in the air, but he was very physical off the line of scrimmage. 90% of receivers that go against Trayvon couldn't even get off the line of scrimmage, as you saw in the Tennessee game. With Josh Jobe is physical, man, and he can play coverage. Josh Jobe may be in coverage just about as good as I've seen outside of Marlon Humphrey. If you remember, Marlon was more of a man coverage corner that could play cover. He could play zone. He could play off. There's a lot of corners that can't play off. They have to play man, or they can't play off. They can't play man. They have to play off. Either or. They can't do both. So Coach Saban puts those guys in he kind of hides them, if you know what I mean, a la Trayvon Diggs. Marlon Humphrey could do both. I mean, that dude could play man, impress, wouldn't get lost. You know what I mean? It took a really, really, really talented guy to beat Marlon, man. So I'm hoping that worked out with us. With Pat at the star, and Josh Jobe on the boundary, and as well as the kid from Mobile, Jalen. So I'm hoping that works out well for us, man. Those guys are really, really good coverage corners. So I think we're going to be fine. The thing for me is we got to get some pass rush, brother, because if we don't get no pass rush, it don't matter who you got back there. We got to get some guys that can put some pressure on that quarterback, man. I think when people hate on our secondary, I think that's had a lot to do with it last year. It wasn't that the guys was out of place a lot of the times. Just we didn't get no pressure on the quarterback, man. We gave average quarterbacks a lot of time to make decisions. And against people like Joe Burrows, that'll kill you, man, every time. I just want to get your opinion on that real quick.
Well, Sean, absolutely, and that's what I discussed in the first topic is Coach Saban is trying to get back to creating havoc from every angle. He looks back at what Alabama had in 2015, what it had in 16, what it had in 17, and what it had was every single angle there was pressure. The quarterback didn't know what to do because he didn't know where the rush was coming from, so you couldn't really, put your protection where it needed to be at. So, Saban's trying to get back to creating that havoc and having, Will Anderson and Drew Sanders emerging like they're doing in this preseason practice plan. It's huge because while, Ben Davis and Christopher Allen both stepping up, both expecting to start at the two outside backer positions as veterans, but having a Drew Sanders and a Will Anderson step up, they can do what Tim Williams and Ryan Anderson did in 2015, which is come off the bench on 3rd and long, pin your ears back, get after the quarterback, not allow him to have that time to throw the football. And when you have that pressure, it definitely helps out the secondary. Now, going back to your first point about, Patrick Surtain, Saban loves to experiment with his secondary. So Surtain will either stay at right corner or he'll play nickel. I like the length that Jalen Armour-Davis has. He came at 6'1", 6'2" from Mobile. Saban talked about his ball skills, his man coverage, his press ability. There were a lot of good things that Armour-Davis came in with. He was just hurt when he first got here, in 2018 as a freshman. But it'll be fun to see how Saban, puts the best pieces on the field. But I agree with you. It starts with the pass rush, and with the emergence of guys like Sanders and Will Anderson, we're getting back to trying to create that havoc from all angles.
I'm excited about it, man. They teach these guys if you can cover your man for 3 seconds and be in what we call his hip pocket, we should be able to get to the quarterback, man. So I'm real excited about it, brother. I appreciate you taking my call, and as always, we will continue to support.
Appreciate that, Sean, calling in from Huntsville. Always a great caller there. We continue in the call. Now, before we do that, gotta shout out the man Jay Lee. The man Jay Lee dropping a cool $3 there in the super chats. Jay Lee donating that $3 there. Also, Waylon donating in $4.99 to the super chat. So shouts out to Waylon and Jay Lee there. As always, when it comes down to super chat donations, it's at the right hand side. The right hand side of the YouTube chat box, right hand side is a $sign. You hit that $sign, make that donation. What that does is it provides more equipment for us, helps us get more equipment here at TDA. It helps us keep the site going, but along with that, it helps out the staff here at TDA, and it also allows us to continue to do what we do, and that's give you guys the best in the Alabama football coverage. So appreciating Jay Lee there and Waylon helping us out there. But big thing here is, the Alabama football athletic department has done a phenomenal job with the brand new sports science, sports performance building, and gotta give a shout out to the head director of medicine, Jeff Allen, who's been dropping these videos on the Alabama football Twitter account about the sports science department. The first video, the latest video of the series, it goes to the mental health side, the behavioral performance side, as Alabama's concerned about the total man. They're concerned about not just the athlete on the field, but how are these guys emotionally? How are these guys mentally? And as you check out the video, you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about Alabama concerned about the mental aspect, the psychology aspect, the emotional aspect of these players, being locked in, not just as players, but as young men in the realm of athletics. Check out this video.
We're going to look at one of the behavioral health suites. We have several rooms like this available for the student athletes so that we can address their mental and behavioral health needs. You may be a 5-star football player or an Olympic caliber athlete, but if your mental or behavioral well-being is not intact, it won't matter. You will not be able to produce as an athlete on your level of competition. So we appreciate that, and we want to make sure that we identify student athletes that may be having some mental or behavioral health issues, screen them, and then be able to get them to the resources that they need for support and help.
Really cool right there, as Jeff Allen concerned about the total athlete, the total human being. Coach Saban concerned about the same thing. So it's just awesome seeing the administration staff here at the University of Alabama really go all out for the sports performance, sports science department. But also in this other video, Jeff Allen talks about the recovery process when players are going through practices, going through games, they have little nicks and little bumps and bruises. Jeff Allen talks about the recovery process and what goes into helping these athletes recover and rest their bodies and get their bodies recuperated in the right way. Check out this recovery video.
So this is one of our recovery rooms that we have here in the Sports Science Center, and we can do a variety of different things in here to help our athletes. You can see 3 of our great athletes right there, Mr. Paul, Mr. Major, and Mr. Jackson right there getting a little recovery in some of our zero gravity chairs, which allow the athletes, as you can see Paul there, just completely to relax. It's also got a heat function and a vibration function for a massage effect. Major sitting there getting a little foot massage there, and then Jackson's actually on one of our Normatec machines that really are helpful in terms of flushing out the lower extremity, especially some of the lactic acid and some of the waste that you can get in that area, and make them feel better and get them back and get them going. Really there's a science to everything that we do. That's why we have a sports science center, right? So we wanted to do things that are really going to affect performance and have a positive effect on these guys' ability to go practice and go win games.
From sensory tables from sensory chambers to massage chairs, I should have been an athlete, because these athletes are being treated right here at the University of Alabama in terms of rehabilitation, the mental aspect of it, and then also the recovery, both on and off the field. So shouts out there to the Director of Sports Medicine, head athletic trainer, Jeff Allen of the Crimson Tide. Also, shouts out to one of our faithful listeners, Spencer Reveley, donating $5 via Super Chat. So we appreciate Spencer there for that donation. But we take another break here on the show. Don't touch that dial. Continue to line us up in the YouTube chat line with your thoughts, questions, concerns, your ideas on Crimson Tide football. Also, the call in 205-448-1358. 205-448-1358. Want to hear from you. But when we come back from the break, we dive into which matchup for the Crimson Tide is the game of the year. Which matchup is the game of the year for the Crimson Tide? We'll touch it up right after this.
If you want delicious home-style cooking, sushi, and hibachi, check out Otoro Hibachi in the University Mall in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. At home and you can't get away from the TV because the Crimson Tide is about to score? Don't worry, delivery is also available through Waitr and Crimson2go. That's Otoro Hibachi in the University Mall in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And make sure you let them know the good folks at Touchdown Alabama sent you. Touchdown Alabama Magazine is Alabama football's premier publication. A subscription to Touchdown Alabama Magazine is the perfect gift for any Alabama fan. For exclusive news and information, recruiting updates, a free annual print magazine, and more, go to touchdownalabama.com and click join. Only $5.95 per month or pay $49.95 for a full year subscription. That's a saving of almost $22. Go to touchdownalabama.com today and roll Tide.
Back in, folks, on the number one source, hottest show on the streets for Crimson Tide football news, notes, information, in my own words, with yours truly, Stephen Smith of Touchdown Alabama Magazine. Happy to have everybody tuning into the show, tuning into the channel on today as we're breaking down Crimson Tide football. And we get into now, which game on this schedule to U.S. fans are you looking at as this is the game of the year? And I understand we are in a day and age where we don't like to use the absolute terms, the terms like must have and gotta have and need to have and must win and, terms like that. But in football, it's a bit different because there are games that you actually do need to have. I mean, for example, you have to beat Auburn. You have to beat Auburn if you're Alabama. It's in the fine print beneath the fine print. I mean, one of the things that, Paul Bear Bryant did that he enjoyed just as much as winning national championships and conference titles is being state champion. Beating Auburn in 19 of 25 Iron Bowls. You got to beat Auburn. So in this sense, there are games on the schedule. Every game is important. Every game is needed. But there's always that one game on the schedule where you as a fan, you go, we got to have that game. We must have that game. Bama's got to win this game. This is, the game of the year. And with we've been able to have a football season this year, the SEC going to a 10-game conference-only schedule, I put up two polls over the weekend, two polls. One was on the TDA YouTube side. The other one was on the, in my own words, TDA, the Twitter site. And the poll question was, for you as an Alabama fan, which game will be the game of the year to you? And the four answer choices that were provided, you had Georgia, LSU, Auburn, and Florida. And with 45.4% of the vote on Twitter, Georgia was the team of the year. Georgia represents the game of the year, according to you out there, Tide Nation. And with 53% of the vote on YouTube, Georgia took it again. So for the fans out there, Georgia's the game of the year. Georgia's the game that Alabama must have. It's got to win. It's got to dominate the Bulldogs. And I agree with that statement. I agree with that statement to a certain extent, just because of the fact that if Georgia is the first game of the season off the bat, we don't know as of right now because the Crimson Tide has not released its full schedule as of yet. But if Georgia happens to be the first game of the season for Alabama, you're looking at taking on Kirby Smart, taking on Scott Cochran. And if you look at this on paper, for a lot of people in national media, Georgia's the team to beat. Georgia's got the 5 stars. Georgia's got the defensive talent. This could possibly be the best defensive team that Kirby Smart is fielding for the upcoming season. And after what happened last year with the College Football Playoff Committee, and we all know what happened last year. Alabama had a full schedule. It had some tough games, but it also had some easy, cupcake matchups. And we don't like to look at the referees as having a major impact on the game. We like to see the officials as, they make calls, but we want football to be recognized for the big plays made by the student athletes and also the great calls made by the various coaching staffs. But going back to the LSU game last year and the Auburn game last year, there were a couple of questionable calls by the officiating crews that led to the outcome, of both of those football games. And, Alabama lost those games by a combined 8 points. And while for some people out there in the media eye, Alabama, even with 2 losses, was still looked at as one of the top 4 teams, one of the best 4 teams, in the country. College Football Playoff Committee said, we're just going to put Bama at 12 or 13 in the rankings. And if they did that, with Alabama having a full schedule with easy games included, imagine what would happen or how the playoff committee could take it with this schedule right here. And Alabama was to open the year with a loss to Georgia. The Tide would have to just abuse the other 9 teams on the schedule by 14 or more points to have that opportunity. So I understand why most of you as the fans will look at Georgia, but you got some fans going, nah, Steven, nah, Pimp Juice, nah, homie, it ain't Georgia's LSU. LSU, bruh, is the game of the year. We lost to LSU. Bama lost to LSU at home at Bryant-Denny. We don't lose nobody, no Bryant-Denny, Steven. Like, this the game of the year. All that trash that Edo was talking about, they won. They got too cocky, man. They got too confident, man. Sitting there saying they was going to beat Alabama in everything, in recruiting, on the field, for championship, Steven. This is a revenge game, bruh. We got to get LSU. Alabama's got to get LSU. Because if Bama don't get LSU, we could lose the state of Louisiana in terms of recruiting. This is a revenge game. And once again, I would agree with those who say LSU is the game of the year. And the reason why, with Georgia being in the SEC East, if you were to lose to Georgia but still beat everybody else, you still have the opportunity to, win the SEC West, face Georgia again in the SEC title game, win that game, that being the game that matters, and still find your way into the college football playoff. It kind of goes back to the 2011 season where Alabama lost to LSU in the regular season, but faced it again in the 2012 BCS title game and got the 21-0 victory to win, the national championship. So I can see why people are looking at LSU, but also Auburn. Auburn actually had 19.5% of the vote on Twitter. It had 9% of the vote on YouTube. And going back to a statement that Noah Igbenogany, former Auburn corner now in the NFL, made, he said, Auburn's the best team in the state now. Auburn's won 2 of the last 3 Iron Bowls. Tigers are the best team in the state. Tigers of Auburn, best team in the state of Alabama. And once again, you look at that, there's a reason why Bill Curry, Ray Perkins, and Mike Shula did not last long at Alabama. The reason why they didn't last long, could not consistently beat Auburn. And remember what Gene Stallings once said. Coach Stallings mentioned you got to beat Auburn. You may not beat them every season, but you have to beat them more times than what they beat you. Auburn, that match will be played in Bryant-Denny and Tuscaloosa this season, but you've got, Gus Malzahn, Bo Nix at quarterback, who's expected to take, a jump, from freshman to a sophomore year. Chad Morris as the offensive coordinator, and then, defensive coordinator Kevin Steele continues to be, masterful running that side of the football for the Tigers. So you always have to keep your eye on Auburn. And then Florida had 2.8% of the vote on Twitter and 6% of the vote on YouTube. Florida will be interesting. Now, it will come down to, does Alabama play Florida at Gainesville, Ben Hill, Griffin Stadium, the Swamp, or does Florida travel to Tuscaloosa to play the Tide? But Florida, strong roster. Dan Mullen, good head coach. Kyle Trask, good quarterback. Emory Jones, strong backup there. They've got pieces on both sides of the football, so it'll be interesting to see what Florida does. But the question is, for you as a fan, when you look at the season, which game is the game of the year to you? Which game, when you look at it, you go, Alabama has to win. Alabama must win. If Alabama loses this game, I'm not watching the rest of the season. If Alabama loses this game, it's a done deal. Put a fork in it. I don't know if we're going to make the championship. I'm not sure if we're going to make the college football playoff. Which game to you as a fan is the game of the year? So definitely want to get your thoughts on that when we come back from the other side of the break. I want to hear your viewpoint. So as a fan, which game to you is the game of the year? And then on top of that, the second part of this question is, how will you go about watching the first game of the season? Which game is the game of the year? And how will you go about watching the first game of the season? Both of those two questions I pose to you, the fans, to give your thoughts, give your take, call in, and let's have a dialogue about that. But I also want to shout out Kellen Parker. Kellen Parker donating $9.99 in the super chat. Appreciate that coming from Kellen Parker. But we go to a break right now. Upon our return, we get into your phone calls, thoughts, tweets, concerns. Let's get this conversation popping after this.
T-Town Menswear in the University Mall in Tuscaloosa. Touchdown Alabama Magazine is Alabama football's premier publication. A subscription to Touchdown Alabama Magazine is the perfect gift for any Alabama fan. For exclusive news and information, recruiting updates, a free annual print magazine, and more, go to touchdownalabama.com and click join. Only $5.95 per month, or pay $49.95 for a full year subscription. That's a saving of almost $22. Go to touchdownalabama.com today and roll Tide.
We are two-stepping hard on a Monday, starting your work week off with the hottest show on the streets, the number one forum for Crimson Tide football news, that being In My Own Words with yours truly, Stephen Smith of Touchdown Alabama Magazine. Got the man faithful as always, John Ivory, in the production studio as he always does, putting down those ones and twos. But it is your time, Bama Nation, 205-448-1358, the number to call in to let your voice be heard on the show. 205-448-1358. We go to a call right now in the queue. You're live on In My Own Words. What's going on?
What's going on, Steven?
Man, I cannot complain here, man. Doing well, just trying to get the fans' reaction of which game this season is the game of the year for Alabama, and how will you go about watching the first game of the season?
Well, with everything going on with the COVID-19 going on, I just plan on probably just watching it at the house this year, Steven, just to stay safe.
Nothing wrong with that. I mean, absolutely nothing wrong with that. I mean, nothing wrong with watching it from the house. You got your surround sound, you got your food, you got your drinks. You can yell at the TV all you want to, and Nick Saban won't yell back at you.
Right, and the good thing about it, Steven, I live in Douglasville, Georgia, so I might have a couple of Georgia fans around me or in the neighborhood, so I'll just be ready to talk a little junk.
So would you say?
Oh yeah.
Would you say would you say that Georgia is the game of the year for Alabama?
I'll say it's somewhat the game of the year for Alabama, just off the fact that the last couple of times that we have played Georgia, They have been nail biters, so I know Georgia will be hungry and will be ready to beat Alabama. So I would say that would be a big game for Alabama, but the only reason I say it won't be the biggest game because even if somehow we do lose that game in a close game, it's so far it's so beginning at the end, it's so at the front of the season that we'll be able to make up for it. So honestly, I really feel like LSU is the game of the season because we have to, first of all, go down to Baton Rouge, and Ed Ogeron, they won, but he was so disrespectful. And for some crazy reason, LSU really think they on Alabama level now. Just off of last season when they caught us in the down year, like at the end of the day, I'm not trying to take anything from LSU. They did have an absolutely great year. But at the same time, they caught us with a horrible tour, and they caught us with some defensive personnel that we had hurt at the beginning of the season. So I go to say that they didn't catch us at full strength, even though they did win. But they did, honestly, and we have Dylan Moses, we have LeBron Ray, we have Tua Tagovailoa, he healthy. It's a totally different game, Steven. But, at the end of the day, I respect what LSU did last year, but I do feel like we do have to have some get back to get this year because LSU fans, they just feeling themselves right now, Steven.
They definitely are riding a mighty high horse there. I agree with you. But, hey, man, we appreciate the call, man. We appreciate the question. Keep listening to us, man.
Man, I love your show, Steven. I have to tune into it. If I don't catch you live, I definitely have to go back and watch it every day, Steven. You're doing an absolutely great job, man. Keep up the great work.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate the love there. Thanks for the call.
All right. Thank you.
Absolutely. We got to shout out William Bryant here. William Bryant with the Road Tide Forever. I believe William just donated in the Super Chat. He did. $4.99 in the Super Chat from William Bryant. He writes in Road Tide Forever. Appreciate that coming from William. But as we dive into the next topic here, and once again, folks, 205-448-1358. The number again, 205-448-1358. Want to hear from you. Which game is the game of the year to you for Alabama? Which game is the game of the year? And how will you go about watching the first game of the season now that we have football? But interesting topic here. As we go from the gridiron to the hardcore, the hardwood, the basketball court, as big news for Alabama basketball as John Petty, the former 5-star in the 2017 recruiting class from Huntsville, will not go to the NBA draft. He will be back at Alabama for his senior year, and Nate Oates is giddy with glee right now because he was already stacking the talent deck pretty thick here, but with getting Herb Jones back, Alex Reese back, and now John Petty saying, I'm not going pro, coach. I'm coming back to the Crimson Tide for my senior year. Folks, Alabama basketball, men's basketball is going to be something really nice this year. And although I cover football, and I appreciate covering football, and I enjoy covering football for TDA, I grew up a diehard basketball fan for Alabama, diehard basketball fan. And the last time Bama made a huge run in the NCAA tournament, 2004, I was 12 years old with braces. 2004, Coleman Coliseum used to be packed to the brim. You couldn't even breathe around, folks. It was that packed. And Alabama had, Antoine Petway with the ruby red shoes, and Erwin Dudley and Ernest Shelton, just Kennedy Winston, just talent all across the court on that team. Got to the Elite Eight with Coach Mark Gottfried. Really enjoyed, that Alabama men's basketball program. And with John Petty back here, with this group, going to be exciting to watch this team take the court here this season. They'll probably be ranked. They'll more than likely be ranked in the preseason top 25. The floor for me with this group is just make the tournament. The medium part of the foundation is get to the Sweet 16, but the higher up is if Bama can get past the Sweet 16, you can just put me in cardiac arrest with a straitjacket on, and I will die peacefully just seeing Bama basketball do its thing. But also, shout out here to Randy Harris. Randy Harris dropping a smooth $5, a smooth Abraham Lincoln there, courtesy of the Super Chats here for TDA. He also writes in, roll, Tide, roll. Let's get all Tigers. He wants to get all the Tigers. So Randy's talking about let's get Clemson. He's talking about let's get LSU, let's get Auburn, and let's get Clemson if Alabama was to meet Clemson in the college football playoff. We appreciate every last one of you guys checking us out, tuning in on today. But also another topic here, in terms of tickets for Crimson Tide football from the Tide Pride office of the Alabama ticket office here, some news came out as of today. So for Alabama football, we could see, a capacity of only 15 to 20%, inside the stadium. So because of that, the UA's ticket office has refunded ticket money back to the students. They've refunded that money back. They've sent the email talking about that as they're trying to get a new system where tickets are concerned for the students out there. Also along, with that, you got the idea of just, it's going to be hard. Tickets will come at a premium this year. Tickets will come at a huge premium for just the average fan because they're trying to reduce the size of people, in the stadium. They're trying to reduce that size. So the tickets, if you're not basically a season ticket holder or if you're not one of the giant boosters, it's going to be kind of difficult to get those tickets. But however, I guess they'll find some way to get around the situation. I know right now they're trying to appease as many people as possible, but right now with the capacity being estimated about 15 to 20% for Bryant-Denny Stadium, right now as far as the distribution for the common fan, for the general fan in terms of tickets, according to the Tide Pride office, going to be very difficult to come by. They're going to try to get students in there because students are the first priority, and then behind students you've got, of course, the boosters, the season ticket holders. We'll see how they will go about, making this all happen here for the Crimson Tide. But Tide football will definitely be a hot commodity in the upcoming season. We take another break here on the show, ladies and gentlemen, but continue to line us up in the YouTube chat line. Upon our return, we dive into a potential schedule look here. How could Alabama's schedule possibly look in the upcoming season? We'll dive into that, right after this.
If you're an avid Alabama Crimson Tide fan and you love to flaunt it, then show your Alabama Crimson Tide support by grabbing the All-Bama sneakers. They feature bold Crimson Tide graphics, so no one will be able to question where your allegiance lies. When you add these sweet sneakers to your Alabama Crimson Tide collection, go to stsfootwear.com and use the code TDAlabama for $15 off your purchase. That's code TDAlabama for $15 off your purchase. Go to stsfootwear.com and get your All-Bama sneakers today. Touchdown Alabama Magazine is Alabama football's premier publication. A subscription to Touchdown Alabama Magazine is the perfect gift for any Alabama fan. For exclusive news and information, recruiting updates, a free annual print magazine, and more, go to touchdownalabama.com and click join. Only $5.95 per month or pay $49.95 for a full year subscription. That's a saving of almost $22. Go to touchdownalabama.com today and roll Tide.
All right, folks, we are back from the break here on In My Own Words. Hottest show on the streets here. Yours truly, Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama Magazine, talking Crimson Tide football. And what's interesting here is a potential or a possible look at how the Alabama schedule could be for football in the upcoming season. And content can come from everywhere. I've always mentioned that. Entertaining, intriguing content can always come from anywhere, whether it's social media, whether it's, out and about. You can always find some type of really informative or really interesting content here on the Crimson Tide. So I was going through Twitter on over the weekend, and I saw this post from one Mark Jennings. Mark Jennings, who's an analyst, covers the Crimson Tide for Champs Corner. That's a podcast that he has, Champs Corner. This is Mark Jennings, but he posted this photo to Twitter about how the schedule could look, how it could shape up, how it could stack up here for the Crimson Tide. Now, he was trying to pitch this photo to Greg Byrne, Alabama Athletic Director, and also Greg Sankey, Commissioner of the SEC. And you're not going to appease everybody. You're not going to make everybody happy. If you try to make everybody happy, you're going to have a whole bunch of stress-related issues because you're not going to appease everyone. So the main thing is always, if you can get the masses, right? If you can get between 75 to 80, 85% of people to respect your viewpoint, then you do well. So if you look at just this projection that Mark Jennings has put out here, this is interesting because if it unfolds like this would hit on all the appeals. The fan appeal in terms of competitive, fun, entertaining, marquee games for Alabama football fans and college football fans. This would hit on the appeal of television contracts, especially the second half here of this schedule. And it will also hit the appeal of those fans that respect Georgia so much that you don't want to play Georgia straight out of the gate to start the year. You want to ease into facing the Bulldogs here. So this is what Mark Jennings of Champs Corner, podcast for Alabama, this is what he's got listed here. So for the first game of the year, September 26th, he's got the season opener against Vanderbilt. So season opener against Vandy. Then he's got Arkansas on October 3rd. He's got Georgia on October 10th, third game of the season. He's got Ole Miss October 17th. He's got Tennessee on October 24th, and then there's a bye week, which is the week of October 31st, the week of Halloween, Nick Saban's birthday weekend. So the first part of that season, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Georgia, Ole Miss, Tennessee. That's a good look right there because you got the two warm-up games prior to facing Georgia. Georgia in the middle of that first part of the schedule, the big matchup right there. And then you got Tennessee, with a program that's headed in the right direction, and then the wild card factor in Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin. After the bye week, this is where the TV contracts make the money. After the bye week, this is where the Bama fans and the college football fans that just want really, 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 really darn good football, this is where that comes in. This is where Alabama earns its keep into the college football playoff because this is the gauntlet. So after the bye week, you got LSU November 7th, you got Mississippi State on the 14th, Florida November 21st, Texas A&M November 28th, and then December 5th, Auburn. LSU, Mississippi State, Florida, A&M, Auburn. That is a gauntlet right there. That's no holds bar. That's I can't look over any team. That's a gut check every single week those last 5 games. If the schedule was to fall like this and Alabama was able to navigate the whole schedule, but especially those last 5 games, if Alabama was able to navigate those last 5 games with no losses and no injuries, there is no way on God's earth you're keeping this team out of the playoff. No way. I mean, if you navigate those last 5 games, no injuries, no losses, not only do you make the playoff, you are the number 1 seed going into the playoff, and it would be very, very highly difficult for any team to top of the Crimson Tide if that becomes the schedule. Once again, this is just a projection here coming from Mark Jennings, who does the Champs Corner podcast for the Crimson Tide. But I just saw this being very interesting when you look at this type of content, because if it was to fall like this, and the SEC, once it drops the full schedule, each team, each respective program drops their schedule, we'll be able to look at it, conversate it, dissect it, and really get into the nuts and bolts of a discussion. But if it was to fall the way that Jennings has it listed here in his sort of projection, this would be very interesting, to be very fun. It would hit on everything. It would hit on the appeal of the fans. It would hit on the excitement for TV revenue, TV deals, TV contracts. Everybody would be fighting for who gets these games. It would hit on the fans that kind of want that tune-up moment prior to facing Georgia, not, playing the Bulldogs off the rip first game of the season. I just thought that was really interesting. But if it falls that way, sweet Jesus, the last 5 games, that would be a gauntlet and a fun gauntlet to indeed watch. But as always, Tide Nation, you want the best in news, notes, information, coverage on your Crimson Tide. This is very simple and easy to access. You can get this by downloading the Touchdown Alabama Magazine app for your iPhone. If you are for the iPhone App Store, if you're rocking Team Apple, Google Play Store if you just so happen to have the Android phone. For your audio listening needs, we have you covered. iTunes or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Spreaker, TuneIn Radio, Overcast.fm, or iHeartRadio. We've got you covered. If the good and gracious Lord sees fit, I will return on Wednesday, continuing the conversation that is Tide football. Special shout out to Senordor Hines. Senordor Hines, who brings in $9.99, dropping into $9.99 in the super chat. So appreciating Senordor Hines for that donation there. As always, Tide fans, you can purchase individual copies of Touchdown Alabama Magazine. Have those sent to your door. Link will be found in the description. Also, be sure to subscribe to Touchdown Alabama Magazine, just $5.95 a month. You do this, you get all the latest information on your Crimson Tide. You get the annual magazine. You get the exceptional recruiting news from our own Justin Smith. Just go to touchdownalabama.com and click join, be a part of the family, be a part of what we do here as far as breaking down the Crimson Tide. That's Senador Hines, dropping that $9.99 into the super chat there. But until next time, folks, husbands, love your wives. Wives, appreciate, value those husbands. Children, continue doing those things legitimately now to not be bored. Get you those 3 hearty meals a day, those 3 great laughs a day. Protect yourself. Protect the loved ones around you. Until next time, folks, this has been In My Own Words.